The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is hump day in the Riv.
Is it really?
We have some announcements, CJ.
It's the day after the city council.
The council meeting.
The council meeting, which was quite interesting.
Yes.
Also, I guess the Fall River Democratic City Committee met. And so far, I've read 2 announcements by candidates that they've been endorsed by the Fall River Democratic City Committee. Those 2 candidates so far who have announced their endorsements were Michelle Dion and Ricky Tith. So
I wonder if the Fall River Democratic Committee, I think, wasn't Steve Camara a member of that when he didn't live in Fall River?
I think so.
So I wonder if they're going to endorse someone who lived in, who actually ran under false pretenses and committed fraud when he submitted his residency to get on the ballot. And I'm waiting with bated breath for the city council to do something about that. He's been collecting a paycheck from the city of Fall River. And again, not only this, here's an individual who by our Constitution, we have the right to have our representatives be our representatives. And he doesn't live in Fall River. He shouldn't have been on a ballot. Michelle Dion should have finished 10th. She should have been elected. They should recoup his pay, every single dime he got.
I agree.
But what happened? This is the same thing as nobody answers for the maintenance of buildings, except the taxpayer who has to pay to build new buildings when someone's making 6 figures to be in charge of maintenance for years, for decades in some cases, for nearly a half a century in other cases. There have been people making 6 figures in charge of maintenance. And what happens to them? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Non-performance of their position for decades. And what do they get? They get a nice retirement and a big fat paycheck for their time. No accountability. No accountability. If you showed up at work and you worked on an assembly line and you never put a product in a box for 10 minutes, you're going to get fired, not for 10 years or 20 years. This is the problem. Politicians want everybody else to obey their laws and listen to their rhetoric like, I love the Constitution. I'm here because I believe in innocence until proven guilty. Well, you're guilty, Steve. You admitted it. You had to change your damn excise tax address for your car. You had to legally change your driver's license. So that was your primary residence. Because if it wasn't, you were committing insurance fraud because you got a lower auto insurance rate in Westport because there's less crime. So where's the courage? It's an election. We have a brotherhood of connivery. I think I just created a new word.
I'll call Merriam-Webster.
Yeah, well, we can stick it in there. I just added that suffix to connive, or colludery. So we're going to collude to just screw the taxpayers again. This guy went to Political Times, ate for free, collected a paycheck.
I don't think he ever paid for a meal.
had health, got his health care through the city, and he wasn't even a resident. He had no right being on the ballot. And what is our city council going to do? Are they even going to censure him? No, because Steve will say, stop picking on me. You're just picking on me because I'm defending the Constitution. The Constitution that you violated. So I just had to it just irritates me so much when I see these people always talking about Fall River and how we're moving it forward and we've got this grandiose plan and that grandiose plan, and whatever happens, we remain the crap hole of the state and one of the biggest in the country. So where's the outrage? Where's the outrage of your fellow councilors, your legislators, our legislative branch of government, the people who were elected to represent us? Where are they on this issue? They are mute. Instead of having the three monkeys, you know the one, see, here, speak nothing?
Yep.
We should have 9 monkeys. Well, actually 8, because Steve doesn't belong there.
Right, right.
And changing your address after the fact doesn't entitle you to occupy that seat.
No, it doesn't.
Because you ran and got nominated with a fraudulent set of nomination papers.
That's right.
So what happens? No accountability. So when these councilors come knocking on your door and you see their signs, vote for me because I'm really helping Fall River, ask them why they can't keep their own house in order. Nobody's going to utter a word. Nobody wants to offend Steve.
Well, and the other thing is, if they hold one of their colleagues accountable, they may be held accountable, and they don't want that. So it's better to, well, how do they say that? Better to remain silent and thought the fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
Yeah, that is an old adage. But the reality is, it's just like the drunken driving laws. Why don't we have more stringent drunken driving laws? If people are killed every day, they're getting killed more often every time you turn around. By people that are high, people that are drunk, people with multiple convictions. Why? Because our illustrious state representatives and senators don't want to make mandatory sentencing for drunken driving because one of their relatives or they might get stopped someday.
That's true.
And they don't want to go directly to the slammer without pass and go.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's interesting
remember,
you bring that up.
What do we say? Get rid of them. Give them 2 terms max. And I don't care if they're the incarnation of Jesus and they can walk across the Taunton River. Get rid of them.
That's only because they know where the rocks are.
That's right. Send them back into the private world so they can get a dose of the environment they created with their legislation.
Well, I thought about that for a long time, and I said, here'd be an interesting question to put on the ballot, a state question, to remove all benefits from elected officials. No retirement. Health care you can give them, that's fine. Okay? But no retirement at all. Imagine if you took their retirement away, what they would do.
Oh.
They wouldn't serve. They wouldn't be 30-year politicians. Make them pay into Social Security and see what they'd do.
I'm not sure. Knowing them and their ability to manipulate everything, they would probably say, okay, you're not going to give us a retirement system. We're going to give ourselves an $80,000 a year stipend to buy a 401k.
True.
Look, they figure out a way to circumvent everything. The hell with the law. Nobody cares about the law. All you got to do is look at the federal government, the 3-ring circus. Actually, it's probably a 172-ring circus that's going on right now. And they're all quoting the Constitution again. We have a constitutional guarantee. We are an equal branch of government. The legislative branch is equal to the executive. And all they're doing is just doing nothing for the people. Everybody's still paying. You're paying $1 zillion for your insulin. People are being put in a position where they have to choose medications over eating. And some of them can't afford it even if they don't eat.
Right.
So it's a travesty. This country has become an absolute travesty because the politicians, lifetime politicians, this was never designed to be a lifetime position. Our forefathers served George Washington created this country. He was the general of the armies. He won the Revolutionary War. He served. He didn't stay there until he died. You had, what's his name with the diapers? What's his name? Strom Thurmond?
Yep.
He was 100 and something. He was sitting in a, he didn't even know where he was. He had to wear Depends. And he's in there doing what? Collecting a paycheck. And he was, by the way, our liberals will love it, but they know he was a segregationist.
Yes, he was.
And ardent segregationist.
Yes, he was.
So what happens? They talk a good game and they do absolutely nothing. They're like the Chamber of Commerce. I had to segue into that one because we remember when the Chamber of Commerce and we bashed them about saying Fall River was a low crime area and a picturesque waterfront. Well, we know that's not true, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I just had to get what's going to be done about Steve Camara. Absolutely nothing. Patrick, if you're watching, file a complaint. File a taxpayer suit. I'll sign. Go ahead. I'll sign it.
Well, he hasn't messaged me yet, so I don't.
So if he may be otherwise indisposed, he's writing up some
He may be writing an open meeting law complaint.
open meeting law complaint to something at the time. He'll watch it on replay. But look, I know people on the council. I get along with them, most of them. But it's wrong. It's innately wrong. You got to call out people. That's what your job is. You're here to represent us. You let this guy get health care on our dime. So we had to pay the taxpayers had to pay 75% of his medical bills. You let this guy collect a paycheck. That's why boards should not be appointed, because we see what happened with Darrell Gagne. We saw what happened with this. Politicians running and hiding, like they always do. Running and hiding from anything controversial. They'll talk a lot, and they're going to run and hide under their chairs when it comes time. Nobody wants to be there under the gun and take a stand like someone with a little bit of principle and a little bit of courage. Politicians run away. They love the spotlight to cut ribbons and get a shovel full of dirt and take selfies in Portugal. But when it comes time to step up, people should not be in office if they're not willing to do what's right for the people and stand up. I don't care if he sat in the council next to you. Even when he made that ridiculous constitutional argument, nobody called him out on it. Oh, well, we don't want it because he'll whine till 11 o'clock tonight. And it's just like the Charter Commission. Where's the Charter Commission?
Silent.
Where are they? Hiding. Dan Robillard, somebody mentioned Dan Robillard. You mentioned, I don't know which charter commissioner, but I had a conversation with Dan Robillard. He is ready, willing, and able to come to this show and debate anything. But I think his record speaks for itself. We saw him. You can watch the videos of the meeting. He fought tooth and nail on virtually everything. He filed a minority opinion. He did everything he could to help the people of Fall River not get this piece of garbage that we call a charter.
And they were too stupid and voted it in anyhow. And I'm sorry. I am not going to apologize for saying that.
They believed the con. And look, whether it's stupidity or gullibility, how many times do the politicians have to jam it in your derriere before you wake up?
You know,
we said there was no need to have a debt exclusion on a school.
That's
Sean Kadim, who was a former city administrator, said there was no need. They lied their butts off. And the other ones just avoided the question because they knew we were right, and they sold it. Now you got a school, and you're going to pay extra taxes for that school when you didn't have to. And as a matter of fact, Jaisal Correa tried to get that increase, which they had delayed
For this
in
year.
early.
Yeah, for
he
this year.
proposed it. He said, "Well, I didn't do it. We were just talking about it." Of course, a tax that wasn't even necessary. So that's one. And we can go back and every year and come up with how many times have they conned you?
Yep.
Conned you on the charter. The charter commissioners, except for Dan Robillard, got up there and they told you how great this was. And by the way, to show you how badly, as we've always said, this infringes on our rights. It takes away all our rights because they do the charter review. Political appointees appointed by the people who we're trying to not give all the power to. But do you know that and I have this firsthand, and I'm sure Dan Robillard will be glad to come on and affirm what I said. Do you know that the consultant did not want public input at those meetings?
I believe it.
And they only had 4.
I believe
He
it.
didn't want anybody to question anything.
Right.
So right from the get-go, that individual should not have been hired by those other 8 boneheads.
See, the problem was they didn't want to do the job. They wanted somebody else to do it for
Well,
them.
they wanted to take, as like I said, the photo op. I'm a charter commissioner.
That's right.
They wanted all the glory, but none of the responsibility.
Of course.
Let somebody else do it. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, so we're going to take the crown and give it to the consultant. Now we'll blame the consultant. No, I blame you. We didn't tell you to hire a consultant. We told you to review our charter, not throw it in a trash can and create a new one. So right off the bat, this thing was a disaster. Shame on them, and like all other politicians, they ran and hid. Where are they now? Where are they now that the provision has been struck down by a judge? The judge made fun of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's ridiculous.
And we got another judge that's about ready to make fun of it again.
Yeah.
In New Bedford. So this is ridiculous. And, you know, there's an old saying, how can you tell a politician's lying? His lips are moving.
Their lips are moving.
That's it, you know. And that's what the voter, that's what you, the voter, don't realize. They are not there to represent you. They say they are, but just look at the votes that were taken by Steve Camara. 80% of the people said we want him out of office. And Steve Camara said, no, I'm not going to vote that way.
Because of the Constitution.
Because of the Constitution.
Which is crap.
Which-
We all know that. Well,
right.
Actually, I can say that was shit because you said I can
Yeah,
say
you
that
can say
on the
that.
air now. Okay, but that was bull because you know damn well. Oh, he went to the secret meeting.
That's right.
They're buds.
That's right.
They had their arms around each other and hey, look, I don't care. And you know something, that doesn't bother me. Because we're not asking you to believe everything we say. Just listen to what we say, and we tell you, investigate. Find out if we're right,
That's right.
or they're right. Well, we've been proven right most of the time. So if you don't want to believe us, at least give our view the courtesy of investigating to see if we are correct. Anybody that has a job that requires self-promotion, and that's what politicians are. They're shameless self-promoters. Because that's how they get reelected, promoting themselves. Steve standing on top of the mountain right next to Moses. Moses had the 10 Commandments and Steve had the Constitution. Pleading the Constitution.
It's a shame. It really is.
And what do they get for this? Their shameless self-promotion most of the time? They get reelected.
Exactly.
Because anybody that's in a business of marketing something and promoting it, you have to investigate everything they say because they're being paid, whether it's an investigation into something for, because a politician wants it and they hire a subcommittee. They're all appointed by them. Whether it's a Chamber of Commerce that puts out a bulletin that says Fall River's the 5th best place to retire in the country, and New Bedford's the best. Well, segues us into our next little thing. What did we do? What did we get again?
Number one.
For the second consecutive time?
Number one, baby. We're
The
number
most
one.
dangerous city in Massachusetts, according to crime statistics. And remember what the Chamber of Commerce said. Very low crime area. Wonderful place.
But
beautiful.
But
beautiful.
the FBI reports show otherwise.
FBI, and this is a...
But they're not credible, are they?
And look, this is an extremely credible report because the Chamber of Commerce would manipulate it. Because this is based on offenses per 100,000 inhabitants. So it's prorated. So when you get a percentage and you get these things, that's the reason you get to be number one. For example, Fall River had 908 violent crimes. Boston had 4,324, but they're 9th out of 10 because of the population. New Bedford is 8th. They had 603. We had 1 murders, but we're already getting better at being number one because we've got another murder.
Exactly.
So, you know, these crimes fall in, and I'm quoting from the article, these crimes fall into the categories of aggravated, now these are not like pickpockets or somebody stealing, you know, a porch pirate. Aggravated assault, rape, robbery, and murder, and non-negligent manslaughter. These crimes will factor in with population per capita frequency to devise a ratio, the most dangerous cities in the Commonwealth. There you go. Forget about the bullshit and look at the reality. And this, I'm speaking to the city council. Don't tell me the city's getting better. Second year in a row we're the most dangerous city in the state of Massachusetts, and we might even beat Hartford for the most dangerous city per capita in New England. So if they're not going to fix it, get rid of them. Drain the swamp.
And those are people that are also part of the responsibility of this. So they need to go.
And they got to start with the first step. Yep. Clean up your own house.
Exactly.
What are you going to do about Steve?
Right. Right. Now, you know, the city, and here's another thing. Here's shows you how effective our city council is. You know Granite Street?
Yeah.
You know what Granite Street is?
Of course. The old Granite Block Spa, too.
Right. Between Rock Street and Purchase Street, right?
Yep.
That's not an accepted city street. It wasn't until last night, that is. And guess what the city did? Paved it. And it wasn't an accepted city street. Why? Because the mayor's girlfriend's father bought the building right next to that street, and he wanted that street paved. And he put that as part of the streetscapes program. And you wonder why we're $1.some-odd million over budget? And then what does the city council do last night? They justify it. They make it an accepted city street, which is increasing your tax dollars.
Yeah, isn't that the same city council said they wouldn't have meetings till the end of this guy's term?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so they talk out of both sides of their mouth and every other orifice that any kind of gas or air can come out of. So this is the problem with them. They talk a good game. We've heard a lot of great talk, but then they can't pull the trigger. And that's what it's about. Representing us is about taking the arrow in the forehead. The reality is we've heard a lot of talk. We heard Sean Kadim say we don't need the tax override. But did he vote against anything? No. Ultimately, he didn't. We hear him talk about the mayor, and we don't want to, you know, we're not going to allow this kind of patronage and obvious manipulation of the city for his own benefit and his friends and relatives. Yet they pave an unaccepted street when we all know why. They couldn't table it. Why didn't somebody object? Why didn't somebody pull a Steve Camara? I object on what? Oh, the Constitution. It's irrelevant. I don't care. I'm just objecting. Do something. But they don't, because guess what? They're making as much for serving on a council as some people are making for working a full-time job in Fall River. And they all got full-time jobs. When it's election time, you'll have a 4.5-hour council meeting, and there'll be a 3.5-hour debate about a curb cut.
Yep, exactly.
Because everybody wants camera time.
Yep.
Everybody wants camera time. It's an election. And the only people who don't give a damn about camera time now are the people who aren't running.
Yeah, exactly.
But anybody else is going to get camera time.
Yep.
And, you know, we've been on the air 7 years now. We've been saying the same thing. Follow the money and pay attention and do your homework. We're not asking you to agree, disagree, or believe everything we say, but at least investigate what we say. If you had done that for a while, we might have a whole different city council and you'd be paying a lot less taxes.
True, true.
But, so, the burden is on the people. And as much as we rail against it, when I go to the ballot box, I only vote for people who I feel are representing me.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to vote for a chow mein sandwich.
And if they don't get in, and these people continue to get in, I will continue to voice my displeasure. But unlike our federal government, I'm not going to pick it and say they don't belong in the council, I don't want this person because they have different views. I accept the fact that they're there, but I don't have to be quiet when they screw up. And that's
Which seems to be all the time.
That's what which seems to be all, exactly. That's why I believe that we need to convince more people to vote for their own interests. Promote yourself. And it was really great to see Ellen DeGeneres sitting next to George Bush and being attacked by her own liberals.
Yep.
Crucified by her own liberals. And she had enough courage, and I got to give her credit. And what she said, I agree with. She has friends who she agrees with virtually nothing about, and I agree with her on virtually nothing. But I respect the fact that she said, I can still have a friend who I don't agree with politically or religiously or anything. I can still have a friend because it allows us to debate the issues, not make it personal. So she can have a friend who she likes because they can discuss baseball or football or whatever she wants to discuss, but they have some kind of relationship, whatever it's based on. But it's not based on you have to accept every single idea and every single position that I take, because that's what the liberal left is doing now. They attacked her, who's a bastion of the liberal left, and they attacked her vehemently. For what? For sitting near a former president of the United States, who, by the way, I didn't agree with and didn't like. But he was the president of the United States. They were at a football game. Maybe they both liked the Dallas Cowboys. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe one wasn't a Cowboy fan. So they could talk about their team. I have friends that are Red Sox fans. I'm not. And all of you who liked me because you thought I was a Red Sox fan, you can dislike me now because I'm not a Red Sox fan. So, but because I don't really care, because that's really insignificant in the scheme of things. So we want people who will tell us the truth, who will stand up and remember the words of Emiliano Zapata. It is better to die on your feet than live on your knees. So if you're always going to bend to political pressure, you don't deserve to occupy a seat in government. So with that, we'll see you on Friday.
It should be interesting. We didn't get to a couple of things that I really wanted to get to, but you know, we never have enough time. So
Yeah,
I'll remember to bring it up on Friday. That's
Bring it
for
up
sure.
on Friday, because once I get off on these, they aggravate me so much we could do a 1-year show.
Exactly. Have a great day, everyone, and it's going to be raining until all the rest of the week, so bring your raincoat out.
Enjoy
Bye-bye.
the rain.